Welcome and good morning to everyone. It gives me an immense pleasure to welcome you all on this auspicious morning. That is the industry oriented expert talk on migration to cloud. That Thank you for joining us for today's session. My name is Varudni and I am from BBA. I am the host for today's morning. Today we have Mr. Aakar Singh sir with us. We feel greatly honored to have sir with us for this morning. Aakar Singh sir is a junior architect and principal for finance group. He mentoring interns and leading a group. He is here to educate us about cloud architect. He played many roles as software analyst, senior software developer, and senior software engineer. He's here to say about focuses on migration cloud. Our speaker is currently working at so Sector Group Limited as an architect. Also worked as senior software engineer, senior software developer, software analyst at Principal Finance Group. Sir, you may start now. And students, if you have any doubts or questions regarding the presentation, don't interrupt in the middle. You can just raise your hand and we'll bring up them later. We will also have the time for questions at the end. Thank you. Sir, then now the platform is yours.
Hi everyone. Uh, Before starting, typically I always ask people to raise hands. Uh, so uh, Out of the group, how many of you who are attending are from CSE background? Can you all raise your hands? Okay, 9 of you. How- let's So 8 of you. Cool. How many are from IT or electrical and electronics engineering? Okay. I think others are not raising their hand. Okay, so anyway, so most of you will be aware of AWS, Google Cloud Platform. With today's world, everyone is aware of, and you will be aware of that people are migrating into cloud. So when I started, when I started this journey, I was not very sure as to what is cloud. It was 2016. Cloud was a buzzword, and most of the managers and most of the teammates always used to talk that we'll be moving to cloud soon. We'll be moving to cloud soon. Uh, so for me, it was, you know, a different experience. Why do you want to move cloud? What is cloud? Why people are so excited about cloud? Uh, and that brings me to that brings me to today's presentation, because when uh, can you all see my screen? Hmm?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, let me just, because I am not able to see. Give me a second. Why after 7.5 years of being in the industry, I'm still not able to figure out why PPTs are in a way that they are. I'm never able to zoom them. Why? Why? Okay. Makes sense. Let me open it using Google. So it is open eventually. Uh, can you all see it right? Okay. Can you all see my screen right? Please raise your hand.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So now let's start with this. Uh, I started telling you about my journey. Now, uh, so for 1.5 years, I was working as a Java developer, and we were deploying things on our local. Uh, but then, as most of the managers say, and how the industry goes, there were people who started telling the company, and Prism is a big organization. They started telling the company, we need to start looking at things, because our data centers are all going crazy with the workload that we are coming, and we will need either have to add more servers, or we will have to look for something else. And between 2015 and 2017, AWS, or 2014 and 2017, AWS was the buzzword. It is still the biggest cloud provider with 44% of the 44 or close to 45% of the bulk of the traffic and bulk of the cloud hosting. We do have Azure, which comes in second with around 21% of the internet traffic workload and enterprise workload. We have Google cloud providers, we have Oracle, we have IBM, um, we also have Open Cloud, we have MI Cloud, we have Orange Cloud, which are all big cloud providers. MI uh, owns around 1 to 2% of China market, and cloud is something that is also owned by Tencent, and many there are many cloud providers. Cloud providers. So when you talk about cloud providers, we'll have to understand what is a cloud provider. So cloud provider is anyone who has bunch of APIs that help you uh, create your workload, distribute your workload uh, region wise or worldwide. Um, it it should be easily horizontally and vertically scalable, and it should suffice the need of the organization. There are a lot of questions I think that people have in mind, and data centers also do the same, uh, but they don't. In a typical data center, you will have to have a team of tens and 20 of people who would be, physically creating new servers, physically, buying and adding new machines, so that the workloads can take advantage of them. They are typically manual deployed, or through a pipeline deployed, and you don't. It's very difficult to add machine day by day. Uh, so when people started thinking of this, the AWS was the first to think about it. So cloud computing has always been around. people had their own, API-based setups in different areas, but they had created that, a kind of a predecessor to cloud. But in 2012-13, when AWS thought of it, so they released Amazon thought of it, and they released AWS as a cloud service provider. People are not even aware of how AWS would do, and they came up with the idea, and they have grown so big. So, how do you migrate? So, before migrating, you have to identify: do you really need to migrate? If you don't have the workload, your data centers are still not load, you don't need to migrate. Um, and if you decide you need to migrate, then uh, there are so many advantages. You can reach your customer easily, because these big cloud providers have different data centers at different locations, and anyone who has experienced the internet traffic, if you try to visit site that is completely hosted in some obscure region, it becomes difficult for you to uh, track it, or difficult for you to browse it or watch it, because of the lag that comes in between, or the latency is there. Anyone who has ever tried to play BGMI or PUBG, once it was banned and servers were shut off from India, it had become so difficult and so laggy, and that is why, if you want your websites to be hosted and can be viewed by each and everyone in the world easily, cloud is a place for you. So you can set up one of your server in Europe, one in US, one in Australia, one in Japan, one in I don't know, South Korea, and one in India, one in Africa, and give them your website from there. Doing that in older context would have been so difficult, because you will have to physically go to the place and create that location. No, but today all the cloud providers, or all the major cloud providers, are giving you that services, and therefore you need to migrate. You don't have to maintain the physical data centers, which is very cost effective. You can give your developers or my developers uh, and a way for easily developing new things, because you don't have to run around and see if you have space to create another virtual machine. So I already discussed on you need to have why do you need to have what cloud vendors. So uh, why it is important to select cloud vendor is because, see, if you're developing a game and that game reaches worldwide, so you will have to think about uh, what are the locations that the cloud provider provides, and then select the tool. What is the scalability that you want? What is the downtime that you can afford? And things like that. And based on that, you go with a cloud provider. For example, Dropbox is a tool that works on AWS. Um, they started with their own data center. They thought of creating their own data center, but eventually went with the AWS because of the kind of location they were able to serve. Netflix has all the user data on AWS. Um, I think this is something that you will experience. So what happens is, any before migrating to any cloud, there is an architecture assessment where people like me comes they come in, and they try to assess what are the things that a particular cloud provider is providing. So any kind of load or any kind of application uh, works on different kinds of system. Now, for example, if you if people around you are creating machine learning algos, or they are trying to solve a data problem, they will need a certain kind of tool sets. Like they will need huge amount of RAM. They might require huge amount of GPU power or CODA power. So then that's a different set of requirement versus if you are trying to deploy a Python application and or a Java application or a .NET application, it's a different set of applications that have to be deployed. You also have to deploy your automation script. You will also have to have a file server where you will be saving your files. You will also have to have think about how your databases would look like. Today, when you create your applications, you use either MySQL or Mongo, but there are so many different databases that are available in the market, and you'll have to think about how when you think about moving something, you'll also have to think about those logistic parts, whether how easily the data would be able to transfer. Um, for example, I think everyone is aware of Heroku here. Can people raise your hand if you have ever heard of Heroku? No. Okay. Okay. So people also talk about POCs a lot. Have anyone heard about the concept of POC? Can people raise hand who have heard the concept of POC, proof of concept? No. Okay. Can you all hear me? Can you all hear me? Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So you are not aware of POCs and data cloud and things like that, right? Okay. So, uh, not talking about discoveries. So, which I already told you that you need to understand what kind of applications you are trying to move. Um, so, whenever you think of buying a computer, and you will go to your friend and ask, what is the latest what is the latest software? What is the latest CPU that is available? What is the latest GPU? What is its cost? What are the software that I will need? I need to build a gaming PC. So I will buy if I have the money of the world. So I will buy a 4090 RTS 4090. Then I will have state of the art RX Ryzen 9 processor. I will have 64 GB of RAM and you know 1000 watt or 1800 watt Seasonics best of the best the power provider and things like that, and I will have a 4200 megahertz RAM. And that is what you have to think whenever you think about, or whenever your boss says that I need to migrate, or you want to start your startup business. You'll have to think about those things. What are the things that you will need? And then it comes that now so everyone who wants to become a developer, this section is the most important. So deciding the approach. Now once you select, and for example, and because I am most aware of how AWS and GCP works, never worked on Oracle and IBM. I did work on IBM. So anyway, deciding the approach. So you have decided that you want to move to AWS. So there are many ways in which you can basically migrate. One is that you switch off your computer and you switch another computer inside the cloud. Second is you think about, so when you think about cloud applications, the way you design an application changes. You must have heard about microservices by now. Mm, I am assuming. So microservices are nothing but small independent units of work that do one job at a time. So you can think about that when you're moving to cloud, that you have smaller. Can you break the application to smaller sections, or maybe you can use a different platform to altogether. So if it's a Java-based application, can you use a Python-based application, or can we move to big data, use Scala, you use PyScala, then things like that. And that is how the approach to the build is. Um, I think um, for our purpose of the meeting, I think private clouds are something that are very exclusive. So I will give you some examples. Like IBM, before releasing the IBM Bluemix or IBM Cloud, used to create their cloud for their own developers, wherein people. So that means they created smaller data centers all around the world, and they gave the developers access to work with them using API, and so that's how they created. Um, People do use hybrid structure, and most of the companies do keep hybrid structure. So wherein they decide some of the applications will never move to AWS or GCP or Azure, because they think either they will take too much time to move, or they are too critical data wise that they cannot be moved. I will um, I will not tell you a lot about. I will talk about what is the difference between public cloud and private cloud a little later. Um, let's start with why do you want to choose a single cloud provider or a multi cloud provider? So you need to understand that any private company is for profit, and if you go with the if you have a small workload or a set of applications, and then you are not expanding that much, I think single cloud provider makes sense. But in today's world, people think about deploying the application into multiple cloud providers, and there are softwares like Ansible and Terraform, then other Bridgeview and HashiCorp Enterprise, which help you into basically migrating your data into multi-cloud applications. Though it's very difficult for a developer, but that's what companies approach are, because suppose if AWS Route 53 is down for a day, 40 if AWS goes to sleep, you will not be able to see around 40 see or operate 44% of your internet traffic. Do you really want to go to that route? Or Azure goes down, all your AD groups go down. So people try to become cloud agnostic. And so that is the difference also between, so people today, interviewers ask you questions about what is cloud native, about, or whenever you try to apply for a cloud developer, they will ask you this question: um, cloud native versus cloud agnostic. So cloud native is, as I told you, that you choose a vendor and then you stick to it. So what it will do, it will give you, it's easy to set up because it's a single cloud provider. Uh, but you will always have a vendor lock-in. No, vendor locking is a very new term. That means that once you have chosen a provider, you will not be easily able to move to a different cloud provider, and therefore vendor lock-in. So if you have chosen AWS, you will have to stick with it. Uh, it's easy. So AWS, or if you choose GCP and if it's a single, it becomes easily scalable because you know the system, you know how to auto provision it, you will be able to, understand the security point of view, it, or create your virtual clouds for it, and things like that. Now with the cloud agnostic system, you will have to, build some of your system by you. You will not be able to use that any clouds, all the native technology. You'll have to build something that can be deployed into multiple ways in multiple applications. So that's why cloud agnostic is difficult. Uh, I think for you as freshers, I think established cloud KPIs will not make a lot of sense, but still, I think you should know. So whenever I try to approach a problem of where is an application is deployed, for my personal, from my personal experience, I do see that one is latency, very important. That any front face facing application should have minimum latency. Okay. Then you also have to think the availability that what is so if you are creating a database, you also have to see that what is if there is a downtime, what are the chances of the downtime, and what is the availability. So availability is nothing but so the system uptime versus versus the system downtime. So that is called availability. You'll have to see about your fixed cost. So we as architect go ahead and deploy application and then literally solve a math equation to see that what will be the cost within the month and what is the expected cost versus. So every company develops different formulas as to calculating the actual cost of a deployment, and that is what we do. You also have to understand that once you are once the cloud infrastructure is deployed, you also check because cloud are so people would say that cloud moving to cloud is cheap and cloud VMs are cheaper, which may be true, but it's not a complete true. Migrating to the cloud costs a company billions and billions of dollars. For a big organization to shift from the data center to uh, to cloud would first come with an increase of tremendous amount of cost, which is in billion. People they will have to hire hire specific cloud agnostic engineer. They will have to pay them a lot for doing this setup, and cloud engineers do get paid a lot. So you'll have to think about those things before migrating. I think this is self-explanatory, and I have been explaining that once you have identified the migration, there are so many steps to migrate. So I think architect does the assessment. Developers typically do the scheme and code conversion. Then there are DevOps engineers that basically do the data conversion. They do production migration. They do all the health checks and migrate the code to the cloud. So there are all the branches of computer science are working together whenever you talk about cloud migration. Ab, this is more of a development life cycle that before so you will also so have you has anyone heard about SDLC, software development life cycle? Now you can raise your hands if you heard about software development life cycle. Okay. uh, okay, cool. So software development life cycle is something that um so that's how do you so these are set of principle or set of rules which say how do you develop how you basically go ahead and develop the and software. My camera was off. So how do you develop a software? So it has many. It has so first, before starting a software development, you will have to there are a number of steps. You will have to get the requirements. You will have to check those requirements are correct with the product owner or your business owner. Once you decide, you will have to lock in. You will have to create test cases. You will have to create that software, and then you'll finally have to deploy the software. And that is how you do it in cloud also. So first you do a setup of your environment as to how that environment will look like. Um, you migrate small bit and chunks of pieces and test whether all the applications are in sync. You create your records, record as well. So you will have to create your own. You will you may have to replicate your data center because that's how other applications are working. And then you'll have to also set up certain monitoring parameters as to what is the cost that is coming off. Is there an application that is facing downtime? And basically try to set up your place. People also have to also do set up their virtual private cloud. Virtual private cloud are nothing but set up a section of your AWS or a section of a cloud provider which is private to the organization. So no one will be able to access that outside the organization. We restrict it using either IPs, ACL firewalls, and so that system is for us or for the organization that is within every application. Most of the applications are put within the VPC just because of that. अब data migration or is and will remain the most important part of any migration you will think about in your next 10 to 20 years, because when you all are going into organization, the company is all about data. We live data, we fight for data, and we survive on data. That's the motto of each and every company. Your data cannot get leaked. Your data has to be kept protected. Your data has to be used by so many people. Your data needs to be backed up more often than not. And that is where all the data engineers or all the software engineers have to think a lot, because when you're migrating data, you cannot afford to lose the data. Number one. Number two, you cannot compromise the security of data. And second, the data should always be in sync. Three most factors. So for example, if a bank is migrating the data and they lose the account number of like Shravya, or they lose my data, I'll go running to the bank saying, "Give my money back, give my money back." So that's because money is basically all in a Finacle database. So you will have to think about, whenever you are thinking of data, think about it that website can be recreated, applications can be recreated, but if the data is lost, it will be pretty much impossible to recreate that data, because that data is sum of what a user or what our users have done. It's a sum total of it. So the data is the real backbone of any application, and therefore when you're migrating it, you'll have to think about what are the things that you have to do. I think resource optimization is something I personally feel is something that it's more of do and see. because when you talk about resource allocations, you you'll have to, and I'm being very blunt here. You'll have to have that experience to understand how your review app, how your resource allocations are made. Uh, we as an architect or anyone responsible for cloud migration do create some some books or something called a run book, which tell you what are the processes that you have to, what are the steps that you want to take, what kind of resource has to be allocated for what kind of workload. And I tell you, if you are developing a game, you need a different kind of workload. If you're playing a game, you need a different kind of resource. If you are deploying an application, you need a different kinds of resource allocation. If you are developing an application, you will need a different kinds of resource allocation. So that is what we'll have to think about it when you are migrating. Uh, so this I have explained in the beginning that any migration, cloud migration, uh, will always have a manager, because managers are, you need people who manages. You need architect, wherein people like me and my team comes in, who goes ahead and migrates the data, or who either creates a plan, creates creates basically the data systems, create the documents, which help then in migration. You will need people like freshers, and people need experienced cloud engineers or cloud developers who will basically be responsible for developing the application. You will always need a security guy, because when you're moving something to a public cloud, you need to know that security is the most important. So that's the migration. Once migration is done, you will also have to govern. So governance is something that we as young developers don't realize. But whatever, and that all drills out to data, 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 and data. Whenever you are taking any of the customer data, you are now bound by laws. So you'll have to create governance plan, that what people will be able to see the data, what people will be able to deploy the application, what kind of APIs do you want to expose, how your organization would look like, processes, plans, and therefore cloud governance, excuse me, cloud governance requires deep knowledge of cloud and a very vivid knowledge of laws as to how are we governing this whole data pile, because people have been fined, people have lost their job, companies have to be closed, they have to shell out millions and millions of dollars of rupees, millions and dollars of wealth, hard generated wealth, just because of data breaches. And they have become common because are you know people don't have a governance setup, and they tend to lose out some or the other security aspect, and your data gets lost. So I think uh, this is where I end the call, saying that there are three major source of cloud providers: AWS, Microsoft, and Google. Um, and why I told what we provide, because I basically provide the services of AWS, Microsoft, Google, and now I think Oracle Cloud also. Um, So there every cloud provider should have so when you as a cloud engineer you should think about dynamic cloud architecture. You must think about um, do we need a cloud agnostic platform or a cloud native platform, and do our teams do our teams have that expertise of cloud migration? I think that ends my presentation very much. I am open for questions. Any questions?
Guys, if you have any questions, you can ask me. Just raise your hand. We'll give you access to it.
Okay,
So,
I don't. Yep, go ahead.
yeah, as we can see, there are no questions. We can wind up the session here. If you have any queries, you can contact us. We will share you the LinkedIn profile of Sir. So now I would like to end up this with my vote of thank. I extend a warm welcome to the people in the gathering, and I would like to express my gratitude to the esteemed delegate of the webinar, Mr. Aakar Singh Sir, for his presence and contribution to make this webinar a great success. On behalf of the entire NGC Club and VITAP University, I would like to thank the Honorable Speaker. Because webinar can't be completed without your presence and appreciative words, sir. Extending my gratitude to our Honorable Speaker to take out time from his busy schedule to grace the event. Thank you for inspiring and encouraging us with your words on this special day, sir. A very special thanks to you, sir, for helping to extend our knowledge on the cloud computing domain. Thank you, sir. Sir, we can't hear you. You're muted.
Okay, yeah. So I think it was nice session. I think I am. I think you need to interact with your webinar host so that he brings the best, and that's something that I will tell to the collective group. Please do reach out to me on LinkedIn if you ever require any guidance as to how to become a cloud engineer. I do teach people uh, for free on the weekends on becoming cloud engineers. So uh, please do reach out to me. Also, start reading on cloud. Very important. Uh, your next 7 or 8 years of or 10 years of career will all be touching cloud. So either as a developer or a DevOps engineer or as an architect or as a governance engineer or as a security expert, you will all be touching cloud. And if you want to make a career in IT, you will have to understand how cloud works. So please do read it. Please do study. Go through podcasts, go through YouTube videos, but do understand how cloud works. I think with that said, it was a wonderful cloud. Thank you for inviting me, and hope I come up with a different topic and get to meet you all soon. Thank you. Bye bye. Have a good day.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.